So, thank you for 3 good seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead. It's like, it's one thing when Portlandia came to an end this year. A lot of shows came to an end this year, and it's one thing when Portlandia comes to an end, and you're like, okay, that's funny. I mean, it's sad. It's a good show, but they gave us 8 seasons of it. You know what I mean? It's not something that really can go any further than where they've taken it. But to get a show like Ash vs. Evil Dead, which I feel like, and I know it wasn't made for me, but I feel like it was made just for me. Like they went, you know that guy, Joe, in Salt Lake City?
He's been waiting for this to come back.
He's just been waiting for this. He's sunk so much money into the VHS of the original trilogy, then to the DVDs of the original trilogy, then the Blu-rays of the original trilogy, then the special edition Blu-rays of the original trilogy, and then the remake. He buys the comics and the T-shirts and the toys and Bruce Campbell's books. Man, we're gonna do this just for him. That's what I felt like. I felt like somehow they knew they did it for me. I know they didn't. They did it for 100 million fans worldwide, but it felt like it was so in tune to what I loved about the original series that even though they added new characters, they took it in a new direction. It felt like it was for me, man, and that's probably the most heartbreaking show to lose this season, this year.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things to love about the show. It's not for everybody. If you're squeamish, it's not for you. If you're offended by un-PC antics and casual racist comments, but it works with this show.
Yeah.
Because he's not being mean. He's supposed to be a relic of his era, right? He's stuck in Arrested Development because if you think about it, the 3 movies, Evil Dead, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, Army of Darkness, they take place. If you could edit them together into one movie. It'd be about a 3.5-hour movie, and they take place over the course of 3 nights. 3 nights. The first movie's the first night, the second movie's the second night, and Army of Darkness takes place over 2 nights. That's it. So 4 days, 3 nights out of sometime in his 20s, even though obviously he got a little bit older by the third one. And it ruined him for the rest of his life. He can't grow up. He's got to live with the fact that he killed his sister and all of his friends in these cabins because they were possessed by demons he unleashed.
I didn't realize that these original films had basically only taken the space over that period of those 3.
Yep. So Evil Dead 2 has a brief, streamlined recap of the first film.
Right. I remember that.
Where instead of having his friends and his sister and his girlfriend Linda go to the cabin, it's just he and Linda. But where the first movie ends with the demon's POV going through the main Deadites POV going through that cabin and rushing up to his face, you could cut that right to where they recreated it in the second movie, and he goes flying through the woods and he's spinning and then he hits the tree, lands in the puddle and drowns, arises as a Deadite, the sun drives it away. Like, you could cut that in immediately, and that's the second day. And then the third one ends after the second night where he gets thrown back into the Middle Ages.
I hadn't realized
and that's exactly where the third one picks up. So you could really cut out the recaps at the beginning of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness and just condense them into one hugely epic. It is really the first epic horror film in the sense of the literal term of epic. It takes place over, even though it's 4 days, hundreds of years because of the time travel and the scope of the third movie, and then it's ruined him for the rest of his life. And so all these years he's kind of stayed at that age. He's never really grown up, which is why he's listening to the same music and he's doing the same habits and nothing's really changed. So when he comes across as sort of slightly old-fashioned and offensive, it's like his heart's really big, but his brain's stuck in that era and that adolescence, and that's what makes it entertaining. I don't think, if you're offended by what Ash Williams has to say, if you take it so seriously that you're offended, boy howdy, I don't know what to tell you. I think sense of humor is might be your main problem. I don't know, because I don't think anyone can be offended by this. But again, it's not everyone's cup of tea, because if you're squeamish and you don't like horror films, you don't like jump scares, and you don't like gore, the humor probably won't even protect you from that, but it does me. I can look at the ridiculously gory, extremely gory scenes of a guy's face being mauled off by a tire, or all these terrible things, but I can laugh at it because it's so over the top, and there's all this humor to soften the blow, because they're not trying to be gritty like a Walking Dead or anything.
Yeah.
And another thing is, Bruce Campbell is the only actor I know who could do some of the stuff that he does, and I don't mean know personally, like, I got him on speed dial, we're best friends. No, I mean as an actor I'm aware of. He's the only person I know who can have his head go through a corpse with genitalia and stuff hitting it and be covered with the most disgusting human fluids, and still you respect the guy. He's the only actor who can pull that off, who can go through these kind of self-deprecating, humiliating things that would probably kill a lot of other actors' careers. And you go, and we applaud him for it, because he's got such charisma and such dignity and such a good sense of humor, and that's what you expect in these anyways. So for him to not do that would be an insult. But man, he is the only actor I know who can essentially have a male genitalia on his face, and you're not like, wow, that guy's career is ruined. Nobody's going to want to watch this. It's the opposite. We're like, dude, you got brass cojones, man. You pull this off and you make us laugh. So it's a shame.
I think the word cojones is mentioned a few times in this last show. I love it how I would normally never say that, but now that I've watched these three seasons, it's part of my vocabulary now.
Now I'll never hear the term El Jefe again,
Yeah.
Without thinking of Ash. And Ray Santiago as Pablo, man, such a likable character. He was
great.
Can I just say, though, that I was surprised when you saw him without a shirt, like how ripped that guy is. Because he looks like he's all skinny and kind of lanky. And then Dana De Lorenzo, wow. She's
fantastic.
So good. And so very attractive and so just cool. I'll say this, I think she's the embodiment of cool on the show. Pablo kind of embodies the sort of heart. Bruce Campbell's obviously the humor and the heroics. I mean, they're all heroic, but she's just the cool character on the show. Like, everything she does and says is just so cool. I'm gonna miss their camaraderie.
I know, those three, man. It was like the Han, Luke, and Leia of this. It was really cool.
They worked so well together. I mean, there were other characters that they would introduce that you would think were going to join the clan, and then they would get killed off a few episodes later, or at the end of the season.
Yeah, there were several people who do that.
That was always a bummer, because it was like, wow, they're making really cool friends. But those three core characters. Well, and I'll have to say his daughter this season, Ash's daughter.
She was pretty cool.
She's definitely part of it. She was cool. I would have loved to see her in more, Like, I liked how she went from the character who was like, you're not my dad, don't talk to me, to, oh my gosh, what is happening, to, you are my dad. And then to find out that she actually has some character traits of his, I thought was very cool. So, bravo. None of these seasons had filler. None of these seasons disappointed. They just made me want more. And now I feel kind of bad as a fan, that I feel like there's more I should have done. I'm terribly sorry that I used somebody else's Amazon Prime to watch it. I'm sorry that purchasing the Blu-rays of the seasons weren't enough, and the action figures. And now I feel like, man, there's so much more I should have done. But I don't think I alone could have saved it.
Well, yeah, it's just a shame that there's just so many people out there that just don't want to pay for it. I mean, we get that, it's like TV used to be all free all the time, but then you were like loaded with annoying ass commercials all the time. So it's like, and it's funny. It's like we're spoiled in this new game now. It's like where a TV show of this quality, it's a damn quality show that would not and could not be able to survive in today's climate of entertainment. It's just bizarre how probably there are probably about 14 or 20 different stupid reality TV shows out there that are doing quite well. Bachelor crap and Bachelorette this and stupid that and whatever.
Project Runway.
And it just all crap like. And this show is incredible stories, like characters, really, really great storytelling and just, I mean, it's like, and 10 years ago we would never have gotten it because of course technology. Now the technology is where it is. You can have this, and It's a damn shame.
Well, they could have. It would have had to have been all practical effects, though. Less.
Right.
I mean, maybe some dodgy CG. But, you know, at the same time, and this is a knock at Starz, Starz seems to have a habit of creating incredibly good sitcoms. I don't know so much about their drama shows. There's really none that I can think of per se that have resonated with me. There's probably some that people will say, well, that was a big hit or whatever, but they seem to produce really good quality sitcoms, half-an-hour comedies that only run a couple seasons before they get canceled. And I'm talking Party Down. Party Down. I mean, Party Down's loss was definitely Parks and Rec and Children's Hospital's gain, because most of those casts moved on to those shows. So Starz has a history of making really good sitcoms that just don't last, unfortunately, and that does it is sad. And if you're a fan of Sir Patrick Stewart, I think you would like Blunt Talk, and it was really good watching that back to back with Ash. I love that shot. It reminded me of Army of Darkness when he's when he's in the pit and throws the chainsaw and he jumps in the air and it just boom snaps right on you. And you're like, I mean, if this was any other movie, you couldn't get away with that. Yeah. Indiana Jones couldn't get away with that, but Ashley J. Williams can. Yeah, because it's just fitting. So him flying through the air and the chainsaw landing on his hand, man, I think I almost broke my couch. I was just like jumping up and like applauding, and yes, I have waited. I'm 13 years old again and just blown away. So yeah, if they can't get another season, if we can't convince Bruce to come back and commit to a season, there's still that idea that they were tossing around before the series was announced of taking the protagonist from the 2013 Evil Dead movie and putting her in a movie with Ash and connecting those into the same universe. I would still like to see that. In fact, I was kind of hoping that character would pop up in one of the seasons. She didn't, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. It's finally ending. It's just weird. So you were just saying before how I promised myself I wouldn't.
No. I'm gonna pull it together. At least I got 3 great seasons of Ash vs. Evil Dead. It still gets me. It's still painful. It hurts. It's like a fresh wound in my heart.
In a slightly groovy way?
It's the opposite of groovy.
Bruce Campbell himself says, I'm retiring the act. Yeah. I'm retiring the character. Yeah. I mean, as he just pretty much said, he's so upset. It sounds like there was just so much pirating that literally the show wasn't able to make any money because so much pirating. So nobody was actually subscribing to Starz at all. And as a result, the show was a great show, but it wasn't, and people were watching the hell out of this thing, but it just wasn't making any money at all.
Yeah, people were watching it, but the ratings continued to decline. I kind of feel like YouTube Red got it right with Cobra Kai by releasing the first 2 episodes for free to stream on YouTube, and I have a feeling they'll do that for the second season. I kind of feel like Starz maybe should have done that we're giving you the first couple of episodes of each season for free to wrangle people in. But it was the most downloaded show on the internet while it was airing during each season, so each season would grow lower and lower. Now, I am guilty of some of that. This last season I did use my friend's Amazon Prime account, which has Starz, and that's what I used to watch the show. But in all fairness, it's literally the only show on Starz I was interested in. And I always buy the Blu-rays. And not only do I buy the Blu-rays, but I bought the Steelbook Special Edition Blu-ray for season 2. They still get my support. I buy the Ash vs. Evil Dead action figures from Nika. I'm a strong supporter of it. I just don't have cable. I just stream off my game console, and that's how I watch my shows now. So I don't always see them when they air, and I don't always, I don't pay for the Amazon. It's somebody else is paying for it, but they're still getting their money. But unfortunately, the ratings declined so low that Starz wanted to pass on it. And it was one of the reasons why the 3rd season took longer to get out. First 2 seasons usually come out in October. The 3rd one came out in February. And it's because Starz wasn't even sure that even after it was done that they were actually going to air it, because, are people going to watch this? And I think...
You mean after they finished season 1, they weren't sure if they were going to even air season 1 or
no. After season 2, it was like we're not even sure if we're going to greenlight a third season.
I see.
So production was delayed, which is why it came out
Okay.
later. And according to Variety, the show averaged approximately about 177,000 viewers by the third season. Where in the first season it was into the 437,000 viewers were tuning in. So there was a steady decline in the ratings. But there was a fan campaign, which I was a part of, to try and get the show on Netflix. But Bruce Campbell basically said that it's the role of a lifetime. He's grateful to all the fans for having the opportunity to do 3 seasons of this character. And he's forever grateful to Rob Tapert and Bruce and Sam Raimi for giving him this, what he called the role of a lifetime. But he's basically retired as Ash. In fact, it looks like when the fans were trying to petition the show to be picked up by Netflix, Campbell tweeted, the big props to the fans for the effort, but I'm retired as Ash. Hashtag time to fry some other fish. I do feel like part of that is a bit of an anger issue in that, understandably, he put a lot into this character,
bringing this back, man. He brought it back to us in full force, man. These whole 3 seasons were awesome. Were so amazing. Seeing Ash back and like emotional and like, I know it's just action horror comedy, but dude, it was such, what a great, he brought it back full force. Every single time that I saw a Spider-Man movie, when we back in 10, 15 years ago, when there was Spider-Man movies,
the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly, the Sam Raimi Spider-Men. I would see Bruce Campbell pop up, and I would think to myself, when are we going to see Evil Dead again? When are we going to see Ash back again? And actually, I thought of that every single time. And to see him come back in this full force and such a capacity and just badassness. It was so amazing to see him back and have him just say this. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
And part of me understands, because that must hurt him to know that so many people have been, clamoring for him to come back. Either in a fourth Evil Dead movie or in this TV series, which nobody thought was going to happen. That was the last thing. I thought there would at least maybe be a fourth movie. Never imagined that we would have a weekly television series, which was just as good as any of the films. So after years of people wanting him to play this iconic horror character, to do it and to find out that the fans are pirating it more than they're supporting it in that financial sense, I could see that to the point where Starz is saying, well, we're not getting the view, we're not going to do it anymore. I imagine that hurt him pretty much as it hurts me that it's canceled. And here's the thing is, watching that first episode of the first season of Ash vs. Evil Dead that was directed by Sam Raimi, it's the hour-long episode, it felt like truly back into that universe. I felt like I was 13 years old again, discovering it on HBO. I was 13 years old. I'd never seen Evil Dead. The cover and quote by Stephen King was enough to freak me out, because at that time I was just barely getting into like modern horror films like your Elm Streets and your Halloweens and your Friday the 13th and Hellraisers and Chucky's and all that kind of stuff, and Phantasms, which I love as much as Evil Dead. And when I caught Evil Dead 2 on a Saturday night on HBO, I'd missed maybe the first 5 minutes, so I didn't know what I was watching, and it was a horror movie, cabin in the woods kind of scenario, and then it turns into something else by the end that just blew my mind. It's like, how do you film a horror film this way, this visceral, this exciting, this chaotic and energetic, and then how do you take your hero and throw him into the medieval past, like the Dark Ages, or the Middle Ages? That's just so mind-blowingly comic booky cool that after that I was
so creative.
Bruce Campbell fan, Briscoe County Jr., Burn Notice, My Name is Bruce, Moontrap, The Man with the Screaming Brain, the Spider-Man movies, like his cameo at the end of Darkman, like Hercules and Xena, like Jack of all trades. I love this man, but I love Ash. I think is my favorite role with Bruce Campbell, and I'm hoping, and it's probably never going to happen again. I'm hoping that Netflix will try and pull the show back and make him an offer he can't refuse, because it is work. And if you come along and say, well, we're going to have the rating. I mean, we got a built-in audience. It doesn't matter. The show's paid for when it airs. Everybody's subscriptions are paying for it. We want you, and we're willing to give you this money for it. Just come back and do it.
Yeah, it's like, it's like Netflix has the clout. They have the dollars. I mean, or do they? I don't know.
No, they do.
Yeah, the other day they were saying that Netflix was filing for bankruptcy. At least at the end of last year, they were, even though they were putting out like 50 or 60.
Happened.
Yeah, well, it's because they've still got so much money coming in. It's like, so it's like, dude, we're filing bankruptcy, but we got $2 billion coming in tomorrow.
Netflix is now the third studio to own a comic book company. So they just purchased Miller World, which is Mark Miller's comic book company. He's the gentleman who wrote the comics that became Wanted, Kingsman, and Kick-Ass. And they're starting to publish comic books now. The only other studios that own comic book companies are Warner Brothers, which owns DC and has since the 70s, and Disney, which acquired Marvel in 2010. So they must be doing something financially right to be able to buy a comic book.
So then who owns Dark Horse? Is that just even...
Dark Horse is Dark Horse. They're independent, which is why every film that's based on a Dark Horse property is from a different studio. Even the Hellboy movies. The first one's from Columbia Pictures, and the second one's from Universal. And I don't even know what studio is doing this upcoming reboot. So, literally 3 major comic book publishers. Well, Miller World's becoming. They'll probably never be as big as the corporate entities that are Marvel and DC, because they've got 75 years plus history and 2 of the biggest film companies in the world. But the fact that they're owned now by Netflix is kind of a big deal.
But I am actually so glad you brought this up. Just real quick, we're going to take a quick side thing. I did actually take a look at this the other day when this happened. Was it October of last year that this happened? That they purchased, when they actually purchased Miller World, and of course everybody was talking mostly about Kingsman and Kick-Ass, of course, just reboot. Seeing the reboot of these, that's probably the first things we'll see is like reboot of Kingsman, maybe actually, a whole show, or
they're going to take some of the other comic books that and turn those into TV shows.
Which is actually what I was really psyched about is this one. It reminds me a little bit of like Flash Gordon, kind of Starlight. Yeah. So this is something that actually makes me really excited about. So,
and that's interesting, is all these other comics that Mark Miller has been doing through the Miller World have been released by different companies. Like, for instance, Kick-Ass was done through one of the Marvel imprints, and same thing with Kingsman, but now that Netflix has got them, they'll all be Netflix television shows and films, because Netflix is starting to get into production of theatrical films too. So I think that they could possibly, hopefully, persuade my birthday brother, Bruce Campbell, because we have the same birthday, June 22nd.
I did not know that.
June 22nd, the day that Luke Cage season 2 drops. Just throwing it out there. We're birthday brothers. I'm just hoping that. So I obviously, when I found that out at like 16 or 17, I was like, oh, well, now we have that in common too. I love this man. I've met Bruce. I've had the pleasure of meeting Bruce Campbell twice, and he's a very nice guy. He's, in a lot of ways, he's a bit like Ash. He wasn't drunk or anything at the time, or fighting demons, and he had both hands. But he's can tell you what he thinks, and he really didn't care for the McFarlane figures I had him sign the first time I met him. He was just kind of like, this movie came out 10 years ago, and I'm like, yeah, but these figures just came out, and he's like, that's my whole point. Why didn't these figures come out 10 years ago? Who cares about them now? But he signed it. He was gracious enough to sign it and take pictures. And the pictures, he doesn't look too thrilled to be in the pictures with me, but still, I enjoyed meeting him, and I think he's a greatly underrated actor.
So he was grumpy, salty Bruce.
He's an underrated physical comedic actor, and if you've seen him in the Spider-Man movies, and if you've seen him in the Evil Dead movies and Ash vs. Evil Dead, you know that this guy has all the physical comedy elements of a Jackie Chan or a Buster Keaton or a Jim Carrey. He's rubber-faced, and he I don't think the only time where I've ever seen him really, really, really hit the heavy dramatic mark was on an episode of Homicide: Life on the Streets. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I'd seen him actually play. It kind of blew my mind. I thought, why isn't this guy doing more comedy in Hollywood? Why isn't he doing more dramatic work in Hollywood? He really does have the range, but people have kind of pigeonholed him into a certain light. and sometimes it works in his favor. Jack of all trades is a bit campy and silly, and he's incredibly funny in it. But Briscoe County Jr. Do you remember Briscoe County Jr.? Used to come on before the X-Files during the first season of the X-Files. Such a good sort of tongue-in-cheek. I'm not going to say campy because it wasn't campy, but it was very tongue-in-cheek with a little bit of a wink, at the humor of this show. It's one that I really enjoyed. Maybe that's what they should do now. Netflix should just do a Briscoe County Jr. show. Get Bruce Campbell locked in, and then once he gets used to how they operate, then they can go, bam, what about this? New Evil Dead show.
And it's really sad. I know that Netflix they didn't do Hannibal. They could have grabbed onto Hannibal, and that was like a gold mine. It's just like they should have grabbed onto Hannibal because it was great, and they had a third season in mind, and they didn't do it. And it's like I guess just Netflix. They have their hands full. They have their hands full of all kinds of things, and so they probably were just like, can't grab this one other thing.
I think what they did with the ending of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and I'm not really going to give a spoiler here. Because we're going to have a breakdown of the season soon. Coming soon. Breakdown.
Just let us know if you would like to see us review this last season.
The ending was open-ended enough where it like Ben was saying, it's an ending that is it gives you closure, but also lets you know that the hero continues to fight the evil. And they did that with Phantasm in Phantasm 5, and there will not be another Phantasm movie. Angus Scrimm has passed on, and nobody can replace him as the Tall Man. They'd have to reboot and start over and get a new guy in there.
I love Phantasm. I've only seen the first two.
Ash vs. Evil Dead. I am grateful that we got 3 amazing seasons. I'm grateful that they continue to push the boundaries of taste because these shows are not really squeamish. But they're so over the top that you can't necessarily take them seriously. They're not they're well above categories of films like Hostel and Serbian film and We Are the Flesh and Raw, and these other films are good or bad. They try Cabin Fever, Final Destination, Saw. They try and go for a little bit more of the realistic torture, gore type stuff, Human Centipede and whatnot, whereas this takes it to those extreme levels, but it's done in such a humorous. It is the only sitcom. And some might argue Stan vs. Evil, which, as much as I like the lead actor in that, to me it's just an Ash vs. Evil Dead knockoff, and how that got renewed for another season, while this show is unceremoniously dumped, is beyond belief. But it is the first graphically violent sitcom I've ever seen, because it is laugh out loud funny, and it's got great visual effects. Just what can I say? It's an amazing show.
And all these new characters you love.
It's something that couldn't have happened if they had done a 4th movie. I really don't think they could have really delved into these other characters had they done a 4th movie, at least not to the extent that the TV show gave them. Even Ruby, with her one version of her's bad, one version of her's good, and then she's bad again, like Lucy Lawless.
I loved having Lucy Lawless in this. She's great. I've always loved her when she showed up. I was like, she's probably just doing she's just doing like a one-off. She'll just be in this season alone because she's kind of busy. She's like in a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I figured she'd be probably too busy for it, but I've loved it that she just wrote out the whole thing. She was in all 3 seasons. That was great.
Well, it's probably a little bit easier for her too because it's filmed in her native country. It's filmed in New Zealand.
Okay.
She's worked with Bruce Campbell and Bob Tapert and Sam Raimi before because of Hercules and Xena.
Okay.
She was a spin-off of Hercules. And those are Bruce Campbell, not Bruce Campbell, but Bob Tapert and Sam Raimi productions. They're filmed in New Zealand.
I didn't know that.
It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, considering that I never ever thought I would get a television show based off an Evil Dead movie, something that up until maybe 10 years ago, I hardly knew anybody that was even familiar with these films. But I am grateful, and I do want to give a shout out to Rob Tapert and Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi and Ted Raimi and Lucy Lawless and everybody for giving me 2.5 wonderful years of something I never thought possible.
That we didn't think sorry. None of us thought we would ever get, but it's such a wonderful thing that we did. Yeah. And it's a damn shame that we only got 3 seasons. However, we are, like you said, we're grateful for it. But so is there a way to campaign further? Is the campaign dead?
I think at this point, I think they'd really have to wow and woo Bruce Campbell. I think everybody else would probably be fairly easy depending on what their schedules are, of course. Right. But I think where Bruce is concerned in the fact that he's tweeted that he's retired the character, which I plead to you, Bruce, please listen to the fans. We love you, man. We love this character, and there's more, so much more story. What I love about Ash in this series in particular, and in a weird way, it's a lot like Red Dwarf, the British sci-fi sitcom I've been a huge fan of ever since high school.
I remember.
Since 15 years old,
yes.
Watching it on PBS. They continue to do seasons sporadically. Sometimes there's a 5-year gap between seasons. Sometimes there's a 10-year gap. It's heartbreaking and extremely sad and frustrating that it's over. But I am so grateful that I was able to witness something that, like Ben said, I just never conceivably possible to me that they would ever turn this into a television series. So on the one hand, thank you, and on the other hand, I'm sorry. Please come back. We love you. So this is my doe eyes.
Has he convinced you? If not,
what can I do, Bruce?
So no, anyway, like it is one of those things. If he's gone that far to tweet and just announce that he's done, that's a shame. So anyway, like I said, throw some comments. Let us know what you guys think. Do you want to see more? Do you feel like that third, that this last little bit that we saw, was that enough? Do you want to see more of this story happen? Do you want to see more of us talk about Evil Dead? Do you want to see more of Ash versus Evil Dead? We appreciate you so much, and again, this has been the Fanatics of Film. My name is Ben.
And I am Joe, and I plead with you, I beg of you, Bruce Campbell, come back to us, man.